Today we're going to show you guys how to build a gaming PC step by step for $525 that is going to look amazing and perform amazing.
And when we mean step by step, we really mean step by step. We're going to show you how to do everything you need to do to put this gaming PC together and then show you guys how it performs. But before we dive into that, let's hear a word from today's sponsor. Are you tired of your unactivated Windows install on your gaming PC? Well, today's video sponsor, GVG Mall, has you covered. GVG Mall is an online marketplace to gain access to really awesome discounted game keys and, more specifically, as we mentioned, Windows 10 licenses.
It is incredibly easy to get your Windows 10 or 11 activation key from GVG Mall. Just use code TB20 to get a special discount, and then all you have to do is take that code, put it into Windows, and boom, you have an activated Windows copy.
We have been working with GVG Mall for several years now, and we love the reliability of all the products they have to offer, so be sure to check the link in the description down below. Use code TB20 to save on your next purchase of a Windows key or other product from GVG Mall.
So when you only got $525 to spend, you gotta go with the budget CPU, but this CPU is amazing. This is the i3-12100F 4-core 8-thread, and it comes with a stock cooler, but we are gonna be using an aftermarket cooler. I'll show you guys in a second, but this is an awesome CPU that is Gen 4 ready, even Gen 5 ready for those GPUs and NVMEs. I promise you guys I talk about the cooler. So this right here is an ID cooling Frozn A410 Black. Normally we go with the SC214 XT, but this one was around the same price, and it's just like an all black cooler. And the reason I did this is I didn't really have to worry about like RGBs mixing and having to have multiple hubs, which you'll see in a minute when we get to the case. So this is just gonna make the build that much easier to work with. Now this motherboard right here is one that we picked out that has a little bit of an upgrade path. This is the ASRock B660M RS, and it's a nice board because you have 4 RAM slots. You have 2 4-pins for the CPU, meaning you could go with an i5 or an i7. We have some RGB underglow that can be modified, and it has Gen 4 lanes, meaning your PCIe will run in Gen 4 and your M.2 will run in Gen 4, and we did take advantage of those. Now for RAM, had to keep the budget cheap, guys. So we just have some DDR4 Team Group T-Force Delta. This is RGB RAM that you can change the color of, and it's just 3200 megahertz. You could spend more money and go with DDR5 so that you have more of an upgrade path in theory, but honestly, we haven't noticed a huge difference between DDR4 and DDR5 for gaming. And for the SSD, we have a very nice Gen 4 drive from Solidgim. This is 1 terabyte up to 4100 megabytes per second. This is the P41 Plus. We actually really like this company, and these are a really good deal right now on Newegg and Amazon.
Now for the graphics card, you might be wondering what's inside this very basic box. This is an RX 5600, which is an interesting graphics card that's being sold on Newegg right now for $110. It comes with 6 gigs of VRAM, and it's very similar to something like an RTX 2060, and it's a 3-fan card, but the thing looks pretty solid. And yeah, at that price point, you're getting a really awesome card that beats most of the new options on the market right now, and we're very excited to see how well it'll pair with that i3. But here it is. It's an ASRock model, 3-fan card, looks pretty solid. ASRock, just finish your backplates, please. It'll make this build look that much better, but regardless, this is still a really good buy right now, especially on Newegg, and yeah, I think it'll pair very nicely with the CPU.
They just need to have just blank PCB just going all the way.
Blank. Like, Callister, can you add a PCB cover, please? Now, this is the power supply. I'm trying to peel this off for you guys so you can actually see it a little bit better, but I mean, to be honest, you know what power supply is. This is the Zalman Gigamax 600 watt 80 plus bronze. Ugh. Finally. It's a power supply we know and love, use a lot, especially at PC Bros, our PC selling business. Again, Jackson mentioned, stay tuned to the end of today's video, how you can actually buy one of these PCs if you don't want to build it yourself, or you can win one. But yeah, Zalman Gigamax power supply, 600 watts, 80 plus bronze, plenty of wattage for this build and upgrades in the future. And yeah, we like them. Now for the case that we know and love, the DIYPC Case Q3, which is basically an O11 dynamic mini clone that we really do enjoy. One thing we will be doing is flipping the fans because out of the factory, it's all exhaust, but we'll be showing you guys how to do that, but it's a really premium looking case at a not so premium price point. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is start by showing you how to set up the motherboard, get the CPU, RAM, storage installed, and then we're gonna take that motherboard and put it in the case, install the power supply, and get everything ready to go and play your favorite titles. And for only $525, I'm excited to see how this performs. Let's get right into the guide.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start off with step 1, which is really just unboxing the motherboard and getting all the contents out. So the motherboard is gonna come with an anti-static, that's already off. We get some basic components with it, such as M.2 screws. We also have an M.2 riser, which we will likely have to use. This part's important. This is our I/O shield. We're gonna make sure we put that on before we put the motherboard into the case. These are SATA cables for your SATA hard drives or SATA SSDs, which we will not be using. And then of course, a quick start guide with a DVD that we're not gonna need because if you guys follow along, you won't need none of that. So my favorite step to start off with on the motherboard is the i3 or just the CPU installation. So we're gonna go ahead and open the clamshell. We have our i3 12100. Now we are gonna be suggesting an i3 12100F, which means no integrated graphics, because these cost more. If you get one with integrated graphics, you're paying more for the graphics that you're not gonna use. This is just what we had on hand, and we needed to get this video done for you guys. So there is the i3. You can only really put it in one way, and you notice how I kind of have it a little bit off. I'm just gonna use my finger and nudge it. You don't need to push down or anything like that. You just wanna use your fingers to guide it into place. There is notches, so it can only go in one way. Another way you can always verify is there will be an arrow, typically on the plastic and underneath the plastic, which will line up with that tiny little arrow right there that Jonah is probably struggling to get to focus. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take this and push it down. That sometimes pops off, sometimes doesn't. And then, while you're pushing down on that, you're gonna latch the CPU in. And as long as everything goes well, it should just go right into place. No clicking or anything like that. If you're clicking, you may have just bent a lot of pins. Next up, we're not using the stock cooler. I grabbed it like we were going to, but we're not gonna be using it. We're gonna be using an aftermarket cooler, which does have some extra steps, guys. So make sure you follow along, especially if you use this exact cooler. Every cooler does mount a little bit differently. So we have our 120 mil fan that goes on the cooler. That can be replaced if you guys want to. You could add an RGB fan. And then we have our actual cooler, or the tower is what we call it. And then this is gonna be all of your hardware. All right, let's go and get our hardware. I'm feeling that step first, Jonah. Oh, this one's, wow, look at the fancy presentation. That's kind of cool. I normally don't have to use instructions for these, but they do often come with either a QR code or an installation guide. Usually they're pretty self-explanatory. So with Intel, it doesn't come with the back plate or anything. AMD will come with the back plate, so if you go AMD, it's gonna be a little bit different, but with Intel, we're gonna use the supplied back plate, and it really should only go in one way, honestly. Just like that. So now kind of carefully just turn it over. I'm using the motherboard box to build on. It's a really good surface to use. So next up, we're gonna need some brackets for installation. So the straight ones are gonna typically be for AMD, and the ones that are angled are gonna be for Intel or LGA. These are pretty cool, I guess. Oh, okay, each color represents. So we have 1200, AMD 1700. This is a 1700, LGA 1700 mounting system. So we're gonna go ahead and pull these out. Oh, look, you gotta tear them apart. That's so cute. So what these are for is basically to make sure that you don't tighten the thing down too much. So you're gonna put each one on just like this. Pretty simple, right? And so next up is, I like to kind of line it up to make sure you guys peel this off, but we don't need to do that yet. So we're gonna do it this way. So if you notice, this side is longer than this side, and the reason being is if we do it this way, it might end up being kind of close to the RAM when you put the fan on. So when the fan goes on like so, you might cover a RAM slot. That's why you put it this way, so that you have the extra spacing for your fan to be set back a little bit. So these right here, these straight ones are actually the mounting for LGA 1700. I was completely wrong. McAllister, go ahead, make fun of me, make me a meme. But these are gonna be the actual ones that we use. They are going to go this way, but I am gonna verify, because the last thing I want is to mount this, then have to take it back off. All right, let's make sure that these screws line up. Yep. So you guys might not be able to tell very well, or I'll do it from this angle so Jonah can see. Screws line up pretty well there. So we know that that's the proper way to do it. So now we're gonna take the included thumb screws, and just like that, we're going to put those on. That's the sound of me turning them. So yeah, basically you'll just hand tighten these, and then we'll go back with the screwdriver and just crank them down a little bit more. Nothing too serious, because these coolers don't just fly off on their own. All right, here we go, here we go. Just get them a little bit tighter than hand tight. All right, we're all good there. So once again, don't forget this, guys. We've forgotten this a few times, and you get some pretty hot temps when you do that. So now we have some bare copper and aluminum. We'll use the supplied ID cooling thermal paste. This stuff's actually pretty decent. And on these CPUs, because they're rectangular, they're not square, I really like the straight line method. Rather than doing like a P in the middle, I basically just do like a nice, I'd say like fairly thick line right down the middle, just like that. And that should give us really good spread, just basically outwards and a little bit diagonal. So it should cover the full CPU from all the times that I've tested that method. So now we'll just go ahead and kind of start this by hand. Oh, wait, I think I missed. There we go. All right. Now we got it. I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening these down a little bit by hand. Like I said, this is really one of the worst steps, honestly. These aftermarket coolers, they always mount differently. No two companies can agree on mounting, but honestly, they always end up working well once you get it figured out. That honestly wasn't too bad. I'm sure that you guys, as long as you follow along, this should be really simple. So I'll go ahead and show you guys each angle. There's that. There's this other side, and then there you go. So pretty simple. And our Frozn, if you look, it's actually like the right way. Once it goes in here, it's gonna be like that. So I know a lot of people who really like the lettering to be the right way. That looks good. So now we're gonna put our fan on, and then we're finally done with the cooler installation. This is definitely a lot longer than a stock cooler, but it's gonna look a lot better. And it's definitely gonna keep the i3 a little bit cooler than the stock cooler would, and it'll be quieter as well, which is pretty cool. All right, so since our rear fan is going to be exhaust, we're gonna want this fan to basically have the pretty side out because it's gonna pull air through and out the back of the case. So with these, they are adjustable, by the way. You can kind of get them wherever you want. I think I'm gonna make it line up perfectly with the top of the cooler, or as close as I can get it. So we're gonna take these little brackets, and Jonah will be able to see the other side a little bit better when I do that. I know Jonah will be able to see this one really well. So you basically just find the little holes in the fan. Make sure that it's lined up. I see a lot of people kind of put these on crooked, and it just goes in those grooves like that. It should be pretty tight to where you should be able to almost lift the board up. I'm gonna go ahead and do the peel. That's a really good looking cooler. I like that a lot. Yeah, the SD214 is cool, but it has chrome, or I guess it's aluminum, bare aluminum on the side, so it's not quite as pretty. Okay, last step of the cooler. I know I already said last step, but this is like the for real last step. We're gonna take our CPU fan, and I'm gonna plug it into CPU fan 1. You wanna make sure you plug in whatever cooler you use to the main CPU fan head, or else you're gonna get an error every time. And also, your fan speed may not be accurate. It might basically run this fan a little too slow or a little too fast. This header will basically adjust the speed based on the CPU temp. Now that that is done, which was a very long step, we have 2 very easy steps ahead of us. Like I said, that's the worst part of the board. So Jonah, what are you feeling next? Are we feeling RAM or SSD? RAM. That's my favorite way to do it. I usually like doing the SSD last. I don't know why it's always felt like the most unessential step. Where'd our knife go? You know what? We're gonna show them the hack. Can't find a knife, guys? IO Shield works amazing. IO Shield, very sharp corners and edges, which is also a disclaimer. Be careful, guys. It's really easy to cut yourself in these things. You don't want to know how many times we've done it here. This is the worst part, is opening the RAM, right? So for the RAM, we're gonna be doing slots 1 and 3. That is typically labeled. Can you see that right there, Jonah, next to my pointer finger? So it says bank 2 and then A2. So bank B2 and bank A2. And that's gonna run in a dual channel mode when you do that. If you only have 1 stick of RAM, you only use the first slot. If you have 2, you're gonna use, this slot and then skip 1. And if you have all 4, you just fill all 4 up. Which, by the way, 4 sticks will still run in dual channel in this build. So when you press the RAM in, make sure that you use both thumbs and that it goes in on its own. If you have to do this, then it's probably not on the way. It should go like this, just on its own from the force of pressing it down. RAM's definitely a very satisfying step to do. So now let's go ahead and get our Solidgim SSD out, which this is really, we haven't used a lot of these, but they look so nice. The packaging's amazing too. So here's our SSD. No really super fragile parts on it, so you don't have to handle these super easy. Ooh, you know what I did just notice? So this M.2 cover, which we do want to put it in this slot because that's going to be the one that runs in Gen 4. That's also our only real M.2 slot. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get to, but we'll be able to overcome that challenge. So we have 2 what I like to call M.2 screws. There's no other screws in the builds that'll really be this size. They're very small. I'm glad this cooler's not any lower. If it was any lower, we'd probably have to take the cooler off, go ahead and angle. So first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and take off this thermal pad cover, and that's just there to basically keep all the hair and stuff off of it. We're gonna take our M.2 and we're gonna put it in at a slight angle. So if you see, you don't put it straight in. You basically put it in, and you see how it's sitting right now? Just like that, kind of angled. That's totally normal, because now you're gonna press down, and then this is a little bit tricky because normally these are screwed in with like an M.2 screw, but the actual thing that holds it down is the M.2 cover itself. So I basically just barely carefully set that down. The weight of it is holding the actual SSD down. So we got that going for us. I'm not gonna screw that in all the way. We're gonna make sure we're nice and lined up first. And obviously make sure you use the same screws, the ones that we just took out of the actual M.2 heatsink. You just put the same ones back in. So we have a completed motherboard. This is technically a ready to go board because we just need to put in the graphics card. And at that point, you could actually just run the PC like this. But now Matt is gonna show you guys how to actually get the board into the case, because that is the next step, and it's not actually too bad.
Hi guys, before we put the motherboard in, there's a couple things we have to do. First, we're gonna take off all our side panels. I got the glass side panel off the front and the back side panel off the back, and we're gonna go ahead and take out the screws we need, which they dangle right here below this fan, so be sure to get those out of the way. But these are all the screws we're gonna need to install the motherboard and actually give you an extra PCI cover in case you pop one off. So these screws we're gonna put to the side for right now. We don't really need them yet, but just keep them close by, do not lose them. And one thing we're gonna do, which you don't necessarily need to do in this case, but we highly recommend it for this build, is flip these two fans, because right now the fans are set to all exhaust. So these two fans are just blowing air out this way, and this one fan is blowing air out this way, and there's no real intake fan bringing cold air into the case. Most situations, it's fine, but for a build like this, it's a good idea to do it just to make those temperatures just a little bit better, and it doesn't take too long. I'll go ahead and show you guys what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna go to the back side of the case, and as you can see, there are screws exposed for all these fans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now all we're gonna do is unscrew these fans and flip them. That's it. And I'll show you what I mean by flip. You might think rotate, you might think, well, I don't know what you might think. You can think of some crazy things. But we're gonna unscrew them. We're gonna take this fan, and it's easy to do the little reach around here, and we're just gonna do a flip-de-flip. So now, yes, the more pretty side is on this side, but in terms of functionality, it's gonna be much better for the overall airflow of the build. So we're gonna go ahead and screw this one back in, line it back up, take the same screws you used to unscrew it, and screw it back in. Here on the channel and from our testing, it does get a little bit warm, especially if you put in higher end components into this. And we got that 5600, we have a decent CPU. We wanna make sure we're getting the utmost best performance here. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw this one back in and then do the same thing for the bottom one. Got the fans flipped for optimal airflow. Now we're gonna go ahead and undo all these cables here. Jonah was hinting that I should do this, and I picked up what he was putting down. So we're gonna go ahead and undo these cables here. Try to get rid of this extra zip tie, which, not to zip tie, twist tie, conveniently very stuck in there. Sometimes that happens, so totally just destroyed that thing. This is a weapon now, be careful. And we'll go ahead and get everything out of the way. You will need these cables later, so don't destroy them or damage them. What we're gonna do is install the power supply right here. Our power supply, the Gigamax, is a non-modular power supply, meaning it comes with all the cables you need and a bunch you don't, which can be kind of annoying for cable management, but for first-time PC builders, it's probably ideal because you don't have to worry about plugging up the right cables and all that sort of fun stuff. So here's the power supply, it's ready to go. Set it down here. Here's your power cord, so you can plug up the PC when you're done. Put that wherever the case box went. It's over here. We're gonna make this, all right, here we go. All right, so move this out of the way. And we're gonna go ahead and undo the cables on the power supply. Now, you have all your essentials, the 24 pin, the CPU power connector, the GPU power connector. I know it sounds intimidating, but don't worry, it's gonna be very easy to plug everything in. And we're gonna take our power supply and slot it in right here. You'll see in the back, there are spots for 4 screws. We're gonna screw that into the back of the power supply so it's mounted into the case. Now, we're gonna do this is fan side out. We want that fan to be able to get airflow from the outside of the case, whether the side panel has a hole for the power supply. We're gonna go ahead and slot this in, and as you can see, there are screw holes that line up. Now I'm gonna need to come around to screw them in, but you can see where it's gonna go. Now for the screw that you're gonna use, inside the power supply box came a couple of things, some zip ties and 4 power supply screws, which I'll go ahead and lay there for Jonah to take a look at as I'm walking around. So we're gonna take these 4 power supply screws and our screwdriver, PH1. We're gonna go ahead and push this power supply back in place and go ahead and screw in the 4 screws. Especially using an LTT screwdriver. We now have a securely installed power supply. Make sure to flip this switch so you don't have to worry about it being a problem in post where you're like, oh, I'm ready to turn my build on. Oh gosh, it's not on. You gotta flip this on to the on position, so once you plug up that power cord, you're good to go. We need to get the case almost ready to install the motherboard. We have to install what's called the I/O shield. This little bad boy right here that cuts a lot of fingers, but makes your build look better. This covers the I/O on the motherboard. So here's the motherboard. Here is the I/O. And that's what it does. So what you need to do is kind of visualize how your motherboard's gonna go in, and I'll go ahead and show you guys how it's gonna go in. It's gonna go in like this. So the I/O shield needs to come off like this with the audio ports on the bottom. That's the easiest way to remember. These are where the audio ports are. Normally it ends up on the bottom of the case. And we're gonna plop it in right here. And I'm doing this in a very weird position. I like to challenge myself to do new things every day, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of them. So we're gonna go ahead and push each corner in. And just like that, I just blindly put in an I/O shield. Look at that, it's beautiful, it looks absolutely great. Now we're gonna go ahead and lay down the case and install the motherboard. Now one thing we always need to take a look at, and I feel like it's happened a lot more to us recently than it has been, is make sure there's no extra standoffs. These, ladies and gentlemen, are standoffs. These are what the screws that hold down the motherboard screw into to hold the motherboard in the case. Now, you see on the motherboard, you have these spots right here where the screw holes are gonna line up. You just wanna visually look, and I'm already seeing one that's probably gonna be a problem, and make sure there's not gonna be an extra one that's gonna touch the back of this motherboard. You see all those extra like resistors and all the stuff that makes this motherboard work? If a piece of metal hits right here, it could short out the board and break it, or not allow it to turn on at all. It's happened a lot to us, and we just wanna avoid that situation. So, I'm keeping an eye on these two right here. I'm gonna go ahead and lower the table for Jonah, because I'm thinking this one's gonna need to move down one, because if you don't see this one line up in the bottom slot, we're gonna have to move it. So let's go ahead and lay this thing down, line up the I/O, and I already see the problem here. You'll see, we'll come up here and look, that this one right here doesn't have a standoff. And you're like, oh, well, there were two standoffs there. It's because that one's touching the back of the motherboard right there. So we're gonna have to take this out and move this little standoff right here. Now, the easiest way to do it is to get a pair of pliers or something that you can use to twist it out. There are little tools that you can get that sometimes come with cases that allow you to easily take it off with a screwdriver, and I'll show you which one of those looks like right here. This little tool attached to the end of the screwdriver goes over the actual standoff, and then you can unscrew it that way, or you can use a pair of pliers and just twist it out. I'm gonna use this for the sake of the fact that I have it and it's much easier, but if you have to do it in a pinch, use something like this. So go ahead and attach this little attachment to our screwdriver, go over the standoff. It is now covering the standoff, and we're going to unscrew it. And they really tighten it down in the factory, so you gotta be very careful there. Use a little bit of force. As you can see, look at our standoff. It's gone. And we're gonna go ahead and put it in the slot below it, where the one was missing before. All right, so it's now lining up, and we're going to screw this in. Boom. Just like that, we moved our standoff down and we won't have any issues in the future. Very important. There's a lot of PC builders, even us, who do that, and it causes their system not to turn on, and you might be wondering, do I have something dead? Well, that's probably the problem. So let's go ahead and plop in the motherboard again and make sure everything lines up properly. Now, you also gotta be careful with this fan right here that you don't trap this cable underneath the motherboard, so just kind of pull it off to the side a little bit. And then from there, it's in. We have multiple screw holes that are lined up. The I/O is lined up to where you have access to all your ports and everything. You have nothing blocking it. Make sure to check these, because sometimes there'll be little pins on the I/O shield that could block some of the ports. And if that's the case, you need to bend them up and move them out of the way. But in our case, we're good to go. And now we're gonna go ahead and screw in the motherboard. We have two screws up top. We have one right here. We have one off to the side by the I/O over here. And then we have one here and one more in the corner. And we'll go ahead and get that screwed in using our fine threaded screws, which is in the baggie that I told you not to lose. So we'll go ahead and untangle this. All right, so these are the screws we're gonna be using from that handy dandy bag that we had. Now we're gonna go ahead and show you the types of screws you're mainly gonna be using. You'll remember this one. This is the coarse thread power supply screw. You can tell based on the head that it's very similar to the ones we use to screw in the power supply. And now we're going to introduce the fine threaded screw. This right here is a fine threaded screw, which has a different top. You can see the difference pretty easily. I'll go and put that back there for comparison real quick. You can see the difference, and it's gonna be used to screw in the motherboard. Now we're gonna grab a bunch of these because we need to use them to screw in the motherboard, and it should be very simple. All those points I showed you to screw in, we're gonna take probably, just grab this many. And then from there, we're just gonna go ahead and screw in the motherboard. All right, guys, we're gonna start with the top left corner. We're gonna go ahead and get our screw in and screw it down. Then we're gonna travel off to our right and screw in right here next to the VRM cooler. Now we're gonna travel straight down and screw in right here. Sometimes you may need to move your motherboard a little bit to get it perfectly lined up. And now we're going to screw in. And now we're gonna go back to this side of the board and screw in right here. And now we have two more screws, one right below it and one over in this side. And just like that, your motherboard is nice and screwed in. We have the case fans flipped, we have the power supply installed. Now what you need to do is get ready to plug up a bunch of wires, because we're gonna plug up all the power, the front panel, we're gonna get the GPU installed, and then from there you're ready to game. So hang on guys, you're almost to the end. Let's get everything plugged up and then go from there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're at the most daunting part. We promise if you follow along, it won't be too bad. We're going to plug in all of the power connectors first, starting off with the 24 pin. This is gonna be the biggest connector coming from the power supply. All right, so I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna feed it, I'm gonna go right through here. And then Matt will very kindly take that cable from me.
And here's the 24 pin, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna take it and plug it in right here. Why is this not going in? There we go. Sometimes it takes a little bit of force. and you're gonna push it in until you hear a click, and now we're good to go with the 24 pin. Let's move on to the CPU power connector.
Yes, the second most important connector. So once again, coming off of the power supply, on the Zalman units, you're going to have a 8+4 pin. We're gonna only need the 8 pin for this. So this connector right here. So we're gonna take that 8 pin and I'm gonna put it right through the top here because that's gonna be the cleanest way. So right up by that top fan, basically.
As you can see, it's protruding out the top. Look at it right there. It's kind of hard to see this angle because there's a lot going on here with the CPU cooler, but we're gonna plug it into that connector right there. Look at that. We're gonna send the cable back through a little bit so Jackson has to deal with it. But there you go. The CPU power is now powered.
So the only connector that we really have left is the PCIe power for the graphics card. Our graphics card only requires an 8 pin. So as you can see, this is a 6+2. We're just gonna go ahead and basically just preemptively feed that through. I think I'm gonna go through the very bottom, right by the power supply. There's a little cutout here. I think that'll look the cleanest. Yeah, Matt doesn't even really need to do anything with this right now. It's just gonna make cable managing a little bit easier so that it's already ran through. Okay, and then the last thing on the power supply that is basically like a non-essential item is going to be plugging in the RGB for the fans. So these are powered by Molex, really simple, there's no hub. We're gonna take this little Molex connector right here, which looks like that, it's a nice fat connector, and we're just gonna plug that in. And sometimes they're really finicky. Sometimes they'll like push the pins out the back. So if your fans aren't working, check this connector. A lot of times they aren't very good. So we're not really gonna need any more of these power supply cables, like this bundled mess. So I'm just gonna go ahead and actually, no, I'm gonna use this area up here. I like this spot. This is like for our hard drive, which we're not using a hard drive because that's ancient technology. That's alien technology right there, it's old. So that's already looking a lot better. Now it's gonna make it kind of a little bit easier for us to get all the front panel stuff to Matt. Speaking of front panel stuff, what should we start with? What do you feel?
I got the camera lined up for front panel.
The front panel, the scariest part, the other most, see I say every part of the build's scary, but this part right here can be a little bit tedious because you got a total of 6 connectors. Now we have a power switch, a reset switch, a hard drive LED, and then power LED. I'm gonna go ahead and feed those through. They're typically always on the same spot on these motherboards. And so now it is up to Matt. It is up to him to plug it in.
All right, so here are the front panel connectors, and we're gonna plug this in right here. Wow, look at that. There it is, all nice and dandy. So we're gonna go ahead and, as you see on the diagram on screen, we're going to go from left to right. We're gonna first do the hard drive LED in the bottom left corner. Then we're going to take the 2 power LEDs, which are the ones that are single pinned. So we have a power LED plus and minus, plus on the left, negative on the right, and we're gonna push them together like so. So there you go. The power LED is right above the hard drive LED. And then right next to the hard drive LED, we have the reset switch. We're gonna plug that in. It'll look like so. And then right above that, the power switch. Now we have all our power connectors plugged up, we'll be good to turn on the computer once we have everything else ready.
All right, guys, next up is USB 2. That is going to be this little guy here, and it is labeled USB, which might be kind of hard to see. But we're gonna go ahead and take that, and we're gonna put it through the same slot that we put the front panel stuff through.
And we're gonna take this little connector, the USB, and plug it up right here. Just like that, plugged up, good to go.
So the last thing that's gonna be towards the very bottom of the motherboard is HD audio, which will be labeled HD audio. And that one's gonna be missing a different pin too. It's actually missing one more towards the middle rather than the very end, unlike USB 2. And that one I'm gonna kind of put underneath the power supply. This one might take a little bit of finesse to get through.
It is already through, it is more than through.
More than through.
We got all this extra length here, ladies and gentlemen. So we have good old HD audio that we're gonna plug up to the far left connector that you see highlighted right there. Callister, that means you highlight it. And boom, HD audio is installed.
All right, guys, now we have one last step before we can actually put in the graphics card and do some cable management. This is USB 3. It is a really big connector, usually blue, so you really can't miss it. It can only go in one way, but you gotta be a little careful with this connector because you don't wanna bend pins on the motherboard.
So yeah, you gotta make sure to line up the keyed out section on this connector where the USB 3 is. This port right here, which is right underneath the 24 pin. Push it in, you hear the click, and boom, we gritty. All right, gamers, it's now time to install our graphics card. Here it is, the RX 5600. Now what we're gonna go ahead and do is install it very easily, like so. First, we're gonna go ahead and remove this cover right here. You're gonna remove this power supply screw that is covering the slot that we'll be sliding in our GPU to. Now this thing is on like a hinge, so you'll just have it moved off to the side here. And now that that's removed, we're gonna go ahead and check where the GPU is gonna fit. But first, you do need to remove this cover right here, needs to be removed. Boom, cover gone, good to go. And we're gonna go ahead and slot it in and see which one of these break off tabs we need to remove. And just based on guessing, it's gonna need to be this one right here. We're already missing the top one. So we'll go ahead and take our GPU out and wiggle back and forth this.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Right here. Ah! Always scream, it makes it easier. We're gonna go ahead and take our GPU again, line her up with the topmost slot on the motherboard, and push. The crunchier, the better. And then we're gonna take our power supply screws, the same screws we use for the power supply, and screw in our graphics card. There's 2 spots right here, and we're gonna go ahead and screw her in. And then we're gonna take our little hinge, push it back, take that power supply screw, and screw the cover back on. And then we're gonna take that PCI power connector that Jackson fed through earlier and plug it in like so. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, you do have a functional gaming PC, but Jackson's gonna show you a little bit how to tie up some cables, if there are any back there that need to be tied up, and then we'll be able to turn this thing on and see if it works.
All right, guys, so this is the last step, cable management. And as you can see, I've already taken a lot of the cables and basically just kind of shoved them into the back here just to make sure that the panel will go on okay. So cable management's gonna be really basic on this build. I mean, it already looks pretty good, but I do just want to basically make it look like we care a little bit, you know? Just add a couple of zip ties at least. Yeah, with a build like this, there's not really a ton of cleanliness you really got to do just because it looks so good already. But I think I'm going to do one more up here, and then we'll maybe get the rest of these cables kind of tucked in here. We can kind of shove these back here. See, a lot of cable management in certain cases will really be like getting things in the right spot just so that they're hidden rather than zip tying a ton of things. We're gonna take some snips or scissors. We're just gonna cut any of this extra off. But you know, keeping some of the cables loose like this is honestly a nicer method, just so that if you ever need to upgrade the PC, you ever need to troubleshoot, diagnose, or anything, you have plenty of cables you can get to without having to undo a million zip ties. But I think that looks pretty good. Let's see if this thing works. All right, tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Are you scared?
Yep.
It didn't turn on right away. I was a little scared. All right, Jonah, at the snap of the fingers, I want to cue some B-roll. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are playing Halo Infinite. Oh, I'm already dying.
He can't even show you the settings yet.
Yeah, I'll show you all the settings in just a second. Oh, yep, there you go.
Right now.
All right. So right now we're at 120 FOV 1080p. No upscaling or anything. Basically like medium settings.
Let's get some kills in Halo on this OG
It's time
map.
to focus up, guys. The hill holder here. Ooh, that guy just grabbed the spanker and I said, honey. Oh, that's a spanker. Oh, he killed himself. Ow, he made me unskilled. Why do I have this gun as my... I'm a subjective player. I play on opinions, not facts. That was
OJ
an
just got
excellent
naded.
Buddy. Oh.
Yeah, buddy. OJ's just getting bullied.
Oh, so this guy wants to play this game. Easy, GG. It just goes to show, guys, you don't need a $1,000 computer to play AAA titles.
Ooh, easy peasy, 80 plus FPS. Let's move on to the next game. All right, gamers, we're in Fortnite. 1080p performance settings. I have that cap for some reason. We'll cap it at 165. I wonder what apply and test is. That's interesting. I didn't notice that setting before. But yeah, we're running performance settings. So we're pretty much on epic view distance, low textures, and we are Peter Griffin, because why the frickin' not? That's what Fortnite is nowadays. Yeah, performance settings, not too bad. Getting 100 FPS, and I just love how big Peter is. He's a tank.
God, his head covers like half the screen.
Oh. Ah! No. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Oh, he's got a riot shield. Ah! Give me your toes.
Those toesies. Oh, he put it away, dude. He said, I don't need this.
Yeah, buddy. Ah!
Peter's never ran so fast in his life.
There we go. Look how slow it moves sometimes, though. What were you doing? What was that? Hey, don't you run away. Oh, okay. All right, let's do this. Hey. Oh,
that
God.
was a gamer.
I got
Toolbox Tommy.
Toolbox Tommy lasered me. He had the mythic gun. That shotgun is OP, but hey, Fortnite runs great. Very awesome on this PC. Now let's go ahead and run 3D Mark, our comparison tool that we're using to compare PCs across the board, and then talk about what we think of this PC overall.
We just got done benchmarking this $525 gaming PC, and I would say it is a really good bang for buck. You guys are going to love the numbers that you see, but of course, we were able to play games like Halo Infinite, which is a AAA title, at medium, even higher settings, and maintain pretty close to a high refresh rate of 144 FPS, which is awesome to see for such a low price. And they seem to still be making this card brand new somehow.
And in terms of the performance in Fortnite on the new season, we are running on performance settings. We're easily able to get 100 plus FPS on average with a few dips here and there. The i3 is a great CPU, but it will cause a little bit of stutter in games like Fortnite, especially with the new season with all the stuff happening, but it's a more than playable experience. And of course, in 3D Mark times by our benchmark, so you can compare all our PCs we review and build here on the channel, ended up getting a score of 7,119.
So we did tell you guys you could win one of these PCs at the beginning of the video, and yes, that is very true. Twitch.tv/ToastyBros. We go live at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time. So right now, if you're actually watching this video when it came out, we are live, and we're gonna be giving away this gaming PC soon, but don't worry, there will be another giveaway every single month.
And if you want to build this PC yourself, you can check those links in the description down below. They will be affiliate links and they will help us out. But if building this PC is a little too much for you, you can go to PCBros.tech and buy a fully built PC with a 1-year warranty as well. Ton of options for you to get this gaming PC, and let us know what you think of it in the comment section down below.
So as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, check out our other two YouTube channels and also our Twitch.tv/ToastyBros. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Once again, guys, don't forget, if you've missed this giveaway, we do one every single month, and also, we sell gaming PCs every single day.
PCBros.tech, sell gaming PCs, gaming laptops, and so much more. And for the month of December, use code SANTA5 to save 5% on a purchase of PC. Guys, go to checkout on the PC you're looking at and use the 5% code. You'd be surprised how much money you actually save. See you guys later. Goodbye.